Hello, I'm Rosie, and today I'm going to be talking about my TBR Jar challenge for March, as well as finding out what my challenge is for April. My challenge for March was to listen to an audiobook. I'm not a big fan of audiobooks, so I tried to approach this with an open mind, but I had absolutely no idea where to start. The book I chose was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, which was recommended by Hales Hearts NYC, who did a spoiler-free review of the book. I'll link that in the description thing below. I've read one of Libba Bray's books before, The Great and Terrible Beauty, and I wasn't too sure about that, but Beauty Queens is an entirely different type of story. Libba Bray has shown, to me at least, that she can tackle completely different topics and do them reasonably well. Beauty Queens is about a bunch of beauty pageant contestants for, I think the pageant is Miss Teen Dream, who end up on a deserted island after a plane crash. And the book is essentially a very satirical novel on Western society. There's the whole Miss Teen Dream beauty pageant, the concept of reality television. The book follows a bunch of the contestants as they try to get used to the situation, and as the story develops, how they deal with different challenges that come their way, as well as the final confrontation with the essential big bad of the book. For me, I quite enjoyed the book. It's very different to something I would have read normally. What I really liked was how you get introduced to these characters as really kind of very stereotypical pageant contestants, and as the book goes on you find out none of them are quite who they say they are, and it's all really interesting how they get their different personalities come out, and you find out their backstories and how they use their various talents together to survive on this island. And you also see how society treats these people in a way that's not really acceptable. It kind of highlights that, as well as making fun of a whole other bunch of different parts of society. And I just really enjoyed listening to it. You could relate to it, despite the kind of exaggerated aspects of the story. The characters were all really interesting. They were each very different, and they each kind of tackled a different aspect of society, and it did it well. There was respect for the characters and their relationships and their opinions. There were relationships, and I think they were tackled really well, and parts of society today that still have issues with acceptance, like there's a transgender character, there's a lesbian, there's all these different characters, and you just see how they integrate, and they each have their own opinions, and it's really great to see that kind of variety of cast develop from this group of basically identical individuals. What was slightly disappointing was that some of the characters you didn't quite get the attachment to. They were just there as an extra, it felt. Like one girl had a tray stuck in her forehead the entire thing, and that was all we really got to know about her. Whereas other characters like Adina and Taylor, you really got to know. What I found that worked really well with the audio was that it was kind of set out like a television programme. It had advert sections and little breaks that kind of allowed you a breather from the story while you're listening to it. I found those really useful for working out when to stop the story to go off and do something else. So I quite enjoyed those little segments, and they worked really well in the audio book medium. My main problem with the story was that I couldn't really get into it because I was trying to listen to it on audio, and normally when I read I can focus on a book and that's it, but because I'm quite a visual person, listening to an audiobook means that I kind of need to be doing something else. So I ended up listening to it while tidying my room, packing or walking to lectures, but that meant I got interrupted by, say, car noises or having to leave quickly, so I missed a lot of the integral parts of the story, and I was always worried about losing my place, like accidentally skipping forwards or going back and things. So it was quite difficult to get used to the audiobook style. But towards the end I was able to just sit and listen, which was really nice, and I was able to actually switch off to it. So while I would like to give a properly comprehensive review of the book, I'm not quite able to because I missed quite a large chunk of it while getting used to the audiobook style, and I didn't really want to go back and start from the beginning again. So I really like this challenge because it did give me the chance to explore a different type of reading or listening, as well as a different style of book genre, because I would not have normally picked up Beauty Queens in a bookshop as a physical copy of a book, whereas I think it worked really well as an audiobook. And I really liked how it was actually read by the author, and she did different voices for the characters, so it's easier to tell who was who. And I thought that just worked really, really well. Me personally, because otherwise it would have been very difficult to tell who was speaking and that kind of thing. It also gave me a chance to get to know the author a bit better, just from the way she read the book, and there was a little interview kind of segment at the end which I found really interesting. So personally, I really enjoyed listening to Beauty Queens. I kind of want to read it now so I can get a better idea of what the story was like. I did think it was reasonably well paced. I really liked all the characters. Like, there was some I didn't enjoy so much, but they had redeeming qualities, and it all worked out quite well, and the characters did things for themselves, and I thought it was a great kind of satirical take on what society is like. So yeah, I would recommend reading it or listening to it, because it does work really well as an audiobook. Like, some books don't. I've heard audiobooks that just don't work at all. But yeah, this one definitely is an audiobook book. I think give it a rating of 3.5 stars, because, as I said, I didn't really get the full scope of the book, so I'm not entirely sure what it was like. Like, some parts I did miss out on, and other parts took a while to work out what was going on. Now I'm going to find out what my challenge is for April. I'm really excited to find out. And yeah, I have my little box. Shake it up a bit. Take the lid off. Shake it a bit more. Read/watch a book and its adaptation. This is going to be quite difficult. In fact, actually, it worked really well with what I'm reading at the moment. Basically, I've just got to read a book and watch the adaptation of it. I've got 2 books that I do know I can watch the film for quite easily because I've got it on Netflix, and that is Les Miserables and Memoirs of a Geisha. So yeah, it will either be one of those 2, depending on how I go, because Les Mis is a fantastically massive book. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Goodbye!